All right, it's tour time. Last time y'all saw it, it was an empty van. If this is the first time you're seeing it, we have a 2019 Ford Transit here that was purchased completely empty and is being turned into a mobile studio slash spaceship slash rolling art vehicle. And yeah, we'll break it down. This might be my favorite thing about the vehicle is these doors flip all the way, and you see that? You see that on the other side? Magnets. So you can open it like this, and they stay open in the wind, and when I'm inside looking out, I can get a pure view, totally unobstructed. Gonna be able to do some cool stuff with that podcasting and whatnot. The idea is gonna be to have a camera in there facing out, and then we can pull up to whatever, have people seated here. The table right now is in, this position because I knew I was coming in and walking around, but it can fully extend like that, and also it's 360 degrees that way and 360 degrees that way. So we have a lot of different options. It can also come out here as well. I think at some point you'll probably see some decks up here and someone DJing and looking out, and maybe this would be, where an audience could be, because it's definitely the right height. I can stand in here. I am 5'11", and I've got some space. I've had people who are 6'2", possibly even 6'3" in here, no problems at all. So everything is working out how it's intended. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start and we'll work outside in. A big part of what I just said and the motivation behind this is the goal is to be able to pull up anywhere and do anything creatively, whether that's recording music, performing a show, filming a video. So at any point where I had to make a choice between a comfortable living situation and a comfortable creative situation, I always went with creative. So you're not gonna see the normal van life, kitchen, bathroom and all that. I'm essentially camping, because when you put that stuff in, it starts to really fill in the space, and I wanted to keep things open and free. You'll also see I do have a lot of construction supplies down at the end there. We're about, I would say, 80% done. It's definitely working. It's definitely in motion, but still need to trim up a few places, fix a few things, make some cushions, etc. That will be actually the main door. That'll be the main entrance. So when we got it, it was totally stripped down, this type of sheet metal everywhere. And the first thing we did was insulate and put in a floor. So what we did was, this is called mini cell, and the floor is basically a corrugated situation, lots of ridges and valleys. And we put one layer of this in between the ridges to bring it level, and then a flat layer on top. And then we laid down this subflooring. I think we took 3 pieces of plywood to get this done. In the back, there's also this great stuff, foam. The thing here is there's actually a lip, and it drops down even further. So this is flush, pretty much up to like here-ish, maybe even right there. And then so we just filled it in with foam. We didn't use that on the underside anywhere else. We did use it around the edges to close off any gaps. But we actually got this in pretty tight, so there's not many gaps there. The idea here was to build something that we could get an idea of its functionality, what works, what doesn't. So pretty much at every turn, we went with the least expensive option for building materials, and the one that was quickest to get up and most modifiable, most easily modified, being that let's say we want to put in outlets somewhere, and I don't want to be cutting into a wall that took a lot of time and effort and money, I'd rather cut into some plywood. So it's mostly made of plywood, and then this here is stick-on vinyl. I'm pretty much done. I just need to finish this. Basically, my timeline got super accelerated and I had to hit the road, and there were more important things to do than finish the flooring, and now I've just been taking my time getting to it. We'll be trimming this out too. We have another session. I'm getting back together with my partner here, and we're going to finish this off at the end of August, and that'll be trimmed out, cleaned up. Sticking with back here, we have over the wheel wells, we have these bench seats, but they also double as storage. Right now we have to remove the cushion to open it up. I don't want to go too much into what's in there, but eventually I'd like to get it to a spot. I think we're going to bump them out further. I think we'll still have to remove this cushion, but you can see the foam back there. These will be going. One of the big things about the van is you don't want to have to move something every time you want to do stuff. So I will be putting a back cushion on there. Actually, mostly right here, a little lumbar support for you. And now stepping into the van is the fun part. So similar deal here. These cabinets are going to stay. Had to hit the road, didn't have time to put the covers on. So right now, luckily I always have ratchet straps with me. So that's what's getting the job done. But I've got, you know, recording equipment. This is actually camera equipment. My unraveled sleeping bag. I cleaned up as best I could for y'all. You know, yoga mat. I have a tent and whatnot. But stuff like that up there. This will be general storage. Ideally, pretty much if it can't fit in the cabinets or down below, I'm packing too heavy. All right, I'll jump to the insulation. It's a little dark back here, so luckily we have these lights. This is something too. So here we go. All the walls are made out of 1/4 inch ply, birch, I believe. Basically, you're not building in a square. Everything is rounded in some way, and often in weird places. This one was wicked difficult because there's so many different places that it curves. It curves like this and like that at the same time. I believe you can steam the plywood if you want to go the Boy Scout route. Didn't do that. We're just going to basically trim all this up. We can get them pretty close and then just cover the seams. We're doing that all along the walls as well. So that was pretty intense. We attached them. Here you can see we used these things. They're called cross nuts or riv nuts. Basically, if you look in there, it actually looks a lot like a shell casing, really, but it's basically an anchor. You insert it in there, and then you have a special tool, and the back of it expands, and so that's not going anywhere. It can actually hold, I think, up to or over 1,000 pounds. I called them to double check because I do have a hammock hanging from this one, and it's moving a bit, but he said the metal will give out before the riv nut, so that looks like it might happen sooner or later. I got to keep an eye on that. Like I said, this is an experiment. You can see some insulation stuffed in there, but what the deal is you put these in. There's about, I think there's 150 plus spots across the van, and you basically insert these in there, expand them, and now you have mounting points all across the van. You'll see here's how they look on the plywood. Some of them I've put washers on, and basically I know in all these places I can drill directly into the van and get incredible support and not have to worry about anything. It's a little wild when you're putting on the walls, because what you have to do is you cut out the wall shape that you think can fit, then you have these and you put sharp objects in them facing the other way, and then you press the wall on, and then you slam on it all over it, and when you pull it back there'll be little indents from where those were, and then you drill through those for your pilot holes, and then you line it up and attach it. So that was pretty it's not really an exact science, so not everything fit super great. And if you're looking at home, see this, how this spins? Not all of them spin, but some of them do. And basically, if you encounter a spinning one when you're trying to attach something, you're just out of luck. You're not going to be able to put anything there. So if I were to do this again, we've learned a lot doing this. So if you have questions, hit us up. But I would definitely epoxy these in the future so that they don't move. But stepping back here, behind all those walls is the insulation. Like I said, this will be the entryway. There's even a welcome mat. You definitely want a welcome mat in your van. But there's a step down there and a recessed area, and this was just the best place to store stuff like this. I made these cushions, actually myself, out of this foam. Basically learned to sew for this project. There's a sewing machine under that bench. Cut this out. Got some nice stain and everything resistant fabric. Put that on top, and turned out okay. But I have some extra padding, and then this will be, we're going to use a thinner foam for the wall, but they're pretty comfy seats. That's a pretty good amount of cushion. And then here's just, you know, some extra wood. This stuff is called 80/20. This is pretty sweet. This is basically an adult erector set. If you play with those as a kid, sort of like advanced Legos. All these channels, basically there's, I would say, hundreds of different attachments that you can buy, and they all slip into these channels so you can connect things in a variety of ways. This is what we use to build our solar rack on top. So that was pretty interesting. We're confident. Again, we checked with the manufacturers about load and things like that, and I was working with an engineer, so don't worry, the rack isn't going to fly off in traffic. But so here's the insulation we have on everything. This is some Thinsulate, and basically there's recessed areas like this throughout the van, little pockets in the walls, and we stuffed that in wherever we could, and we stuffed it in the pillars up top, and basically wherever we could get it. This is going to work as some sound insulation as well as keeping heat in when we want it in and heat out when we want it out. So the goal is to kind of have a stable temperature inside. And then on the flat metal parts, we put this stuff, which is Easy Cool. It's just sort of a thin 1/4 inch reflective type material. This prevents thermal bridging. I learned a lot about heating doing this, but basically that's one way that heat transfers. So anything metal connected anywhere to the outside of the van is going to get super hot when it's in the sun, and this is already pretty warm, this one, and freezing cold at night. So you want to do as best as you can to create barriers between the metal and your environment. And then we just screwed this plywood on right on top of it. You can see the layer there. And all these points here are where those cross nuts are. So we can unscrew these at any time and attach various things to them. So those are the walls, insulation. This is so my bonsai was traveling with me. Up here is where the lamp was mounted. So I had some extra foam, so I built a little bit of a shock absorber situation, so a little less bouncing up and down, and then these go in the corners and keep her nice and snug, and this can flip over, you know, keep it from popping out. But she doesn't really like the van so much, so in the future I think it'll only be a couple day trips, and I need to build an irrigation system. Right now it's just got some sage I picked the other day. I also have some Colorado sage. I'm going to combine the Colorado-California sage and get the vibes right. Shout out to Maddie Sands. She lent me this book. I'm going to hit the van with the feng shui so that everything is where it's supposed to be, and we have maximum productivity out of this. She's one of the first artists that has recorded in this van. I met up with her in Idaho, and we wrote a folk song, sort of, although it might be a punk rock song now, and we recorded that in here. Also right here, while I was in Idaho, Ocho from Boston laid down a record. I also did some stuff with Flip Jackson, and we're getting creative for sure. So you'll see also the dimmers. We have LEDs everywhere. The idea is that we'll be able to film in here very easily. So I haven't installed these ones yet, but there's going to be 2 more lights under here. That way, if we're looking out, like if this is the podcast, right, that's pretty sick. Everyone will be backlit as well, so I don't need to have all sorts of extra lighting. It'll be well lit inside. And same goes right here with these ones. The idea is going to be to put a white and or green screen across there. With the height in here, could easily do a photo shoot or a video if we need to do something quick inside. Right now this is just a Amazon style light blocking sound insulation barrier. That's just the front, and you'll see these. I need to get some magnets on the front one so I can get it perfectly aligned, but you'll see here I made these window insulators, window covers. They're made out of leftover insulation and some fabric I had. I cut the shapes, sewed them, and that makes a huge difference. You get so much heat in and out of the windows. So I have those going, and this even makes a bigger difference than you would believe. I would say it's easily 5 degrees different from front to back there. I should say too, this stuff is not going to stay exposed. I think the plan now, because there's some weird angles like this stuff, and some pieces up front, like you see that the very thin wall there. I think we'll just wallpaper it with some stuff that you might use for, they're like cupboard liners and stuff. They're waterproof, peel and stick, pretty simple. Shout out Rose for that advice. And then this was going to be where I hung my hammock, which you can see is folded up right there. But I realized I could get a little bit better swing on it if I went diagonal. So right now though, I discovered earlier that this is not holding up to the road life at all. So maybe I'll end up putting this curtain on there. I'm going to pull it taut like that, and then I could use Velcro or some magnets and just, you know, close it off along the side. Gonna add some magnets here too so that stays. We got to talk about the pheasant. So I absolutely could not have done this on my own, but luckily I have a friend who is a carpenter, has a lot of tools, and was very interested in this idea and learning how to build a van. I often don't think I deserve the friends I have, but I'm very grateful for all of them. And so Dr. Rao, we'll call him, in lieu of payment, he really only had one request, was that I take one of 3 stuffed pheasants that he happened to have and mount it somewhere in the van as sort of a prank slash calling card. He finds it hilarious. The word terrifying has been used to describe this bird. Sort of unsettling. But so the pheasant, we didn't really know for a while where it was going to go. I was trying all these different spots, but it was pretty much in the way. And then I decided to add this pegboard here. Normally there's wires all hanging here, but I was doing some recording last weekend, so they're still set up at the drum set. And this was a way that I could store a lot of stuff. Vertical space is important. You only have so many flat areas and spots to store stuff. So this was a nice way for me to use the wall space. And it turned out the pheasant covered up the wires. So I don't know, I'm not too mad at it. That's the pheasant though. We also, this is kind of cool, we drilled a hole through the floor and out of the van, and then we put some piping in there, and this is our air intake. That's why the fan's here. This actually gets significantly cooler air. We have our exhaust up there, it's a max air fan, and that just hums. And it actually takes out so much air that there'd be a suction in here if there wasn't a place to pull it from. And it gets it from here. Figured under the vehicle would have the coolest air in general. And we were out of roof space, so we couldn't put a second hole in the roof because of our solar setup. Speaking of which, the solar setup comes in through the roof and out through here and right into there. We're pretty much full right now, so it's not pulling anything in, but I have crossed 400 watts of input at one point. I don't know if I'll ever get to the full 600, but I think on a wild day I might be able to hit 5. Conditions will have to be perfect, but 400 watts is pretty good. You'll see here I've at my current output. This is just the lights and the fan. We're pulling 20 watts, and I've got 100 hours like that. Shout out to Goal Zero. This is actually kind of cool. You can turn on and off the inputs. So if I turn that on, now my power strip and the fan have power, but I can also turn it off there. So there's no like latent draw. It's not a lot of stuff just sucks power even when it's not on. So this is the Goal Zero, and then this is my wiring. The next step is going to be to build a table taller than that, but a similar idea. Put a table across here so that's covered. And you know, this backpack's not always there, so maybe it'll be gone and the table will go out to there or something like that. This table too was clutch for a number of reasons. You'll see it stores things. One of the biggest things with the van is stuff slides everywhere. My new floors got instantly scuffed and destroyed because things just slide all over. So I just have this here, and then it allows me to put a bungee cord across, and it keeps everything in here nicely jammed in. I'd like to add a cooler at some point, so if you're a cooler company, you want to send me something. Right now we're using this dry bag. This is pretty sweet. I got this down in Big Bend National Park, and it's pretty good for drinks. This is my first run with it for food, but we'll see. So far it's kept things cool. The ice hasn't melted yet, and it's been close to 24 hours and 90 degrees, so that's not too bad. But this is doubling as my pantry. I will likely put all that maybe under one of these or in another spot in the future. That's something I have to figure out. But that's mostly the van. Trying to think if there's anything I missed. Like I said, it's a work in progress, but it's fully functional. Just need to tighten up some of these things, clean up the trim, and get this stuff out of here. But we're pretty good. I'm feeling pretty great about it. It's doing everything I need it to do. All right, so I'm a little long-winded, and I filled up the memory card on these things. So I think I got everything I needed to say said in there. If you wanted to follow up on anything, very easy to contact me. But I wanted to get outside real quick and just do the outdoors. Again, one thing that we really focused on was just using everything we had and not being wasteful, especially with the prices on wood and lumber and stuff like that right now. So some leftover cotton here, Frankenstein the last one or two of these covers, but that's fine. This was kind of like a puzzle. This was fun. The insulation, a lot of stuff, the first stuff, the big things we cut very exactly, and then we had all these little strips and pieces, and I just basically filled in all these spaces in here with those, and it was kind of fun. It's like a puzzle. We're going to put that wallpaper over it. You're not going to see it. As long as it works, that's fine. And it actually allowed me to use a full roll less insulation than was recommended for the project. So if you need a roll of insulation, get at me. And learning as we go. This was kind of hard to anchor these in here. We couldn't do the cross nuts, and I tried using some more sheetrock style attachments. It worked up there. These ones obviously have popped out. That's the thing, is you're shaking the whole time. Everything is constantly shaking as you drive, so it's like every time you got to kind of check and see what's come loose. But for the most part, everything's pretty tight now. Nothing's really getting looser. But yeah, so bringing it around, you can see up here, speaking of shaking, If you do happen to build your own roof rack, make sure you use Loctite. There's some stuff for automotive applications, and that'll just make sure it can hold up to the vibrations, because otherwise that'll slowly but surely loosen your nuts and bolts, and that's how you lose your roof rack. But yeah, so we made this all out of 80/20. Just sort of cut the pieces to how we needed them, attached them to the roof rack, and we did make our own attachments just out of corner sheet metal for attaching the solar panels to the rack itself. Those are Renogy 100 watts, 6 of them. Had to get a little creative. We can't put the fan down all the way because there's a bar under it, but it never really needs to go down. They say you can drive with it fully open. The only thing is when you turn it on and off, it tries to automatically do it, so I just kind of keep it running all the time. And you can see on the other side there's a junction box as well. We had to make some modifications to fit with the Goal Zero, and one of those included a junction box, but now it's going to be really easy for us to switch up the wiring however we want in the future. Shout out Stoke Loaf. Went to their site, and they had built a roof rack, and we got some hints from them, like the attachments to the roof itself, and just seeing what other people have done was really helpful for us figuring out what was possible and what we could do. Spent a lot of time looking at other vans and other ideas, so if you're going to do this, I'd recommend that as well. Maybe you'll get some ideas from what we've done. The other big thing we used was Far Out Ride. They have a pretty good van build journal on their site. We got a lot of hints from them, but still, it's one of those things, you do it, and I think I could do it twice as fast next time. You're basically engineering it and solving problems as you go. This is what it looks like from the front. Basically just catches bugs. Might add a little wind guard to it. But yeah, got the solar panel, got the van, soon to be front door. And you can see the junction box, and I have some ratchet straps up there just in case. They're pretty much unnecessary, but had them up there when we glued it. That box is just glued to the roof, so it's one of those better safe than sorry things. But yeah, that's the van, I believe. I might have missed something if I did. Oh, the Yellow Jackets are insane here, and they love exploring the van, so I had some breakfast earlier, and I just put this out here. I need to clean it. Here's a desert tip for you. We don't want to be using soap and water out here, but there's tons of nice sand. What you can do is you can just get a little hunk of sand in there, and you can use that to sort of wash anything out. If you have anything hard, I just made eggs, but that'll get that all out. And then now if I just take some water, I'll be able to easily wash that sand away. And it's a nice quick way to clean things. I'm probably just going to use other silverware. I have enough, but it's a nice quick way to clean your pans. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to get back to all this. And well, first I'm going to sit there and edit this, but then I'm going to get back to all that. So yeah, y'all be well.
Positivity is a better movement. Let us do this. Level up and get into this evolution. Revolutionary math and music. Get us choosing everything but less excuses. Shout out to the kings and queens with everything to lose. They never lose it. There's so much glory in the story.